Helimed 53. Yep, okay. Okay, run away.
This is our helicopter. It's called the Augusta 109. They're made in Italy and they're about £3.7 million worth. We fly with a crew of 3. This is my seat here. I sit in the pilot seat there. And then in the front left seat, we have a paramedic which has done what's called a HEMS crew members course. And they act as like co-pilots and assist me in flying the helicopter. So it's us 2 in the front and we manage and fly the machine. And in the back here, we carry a doctor who treats the patient which lies on that bed there. Okay, well this is the pilot seat of the helicopter. This is where I sit. And I'm very fortunate enough, this is obviously my office, I suppose. In front of us we have a whole panel of, looks fairly complicated, but it's actually fairly simple now. It's all been computerised. The aircraft, we're very lucky, it's a very, very fast machine. It's one of the fastest civilian helicopters you can get. It does just under 200 miles an hour, about 188 miles an hour in the cruise. It can go a little bit faster in a dive. We can be airborne in a staggering 45 seconds from call out. And the benefit of that speed and the quickness which we can get airborne really does help patients with response times. This is the back half of the helicopter where obviously the patients go and our doctors sit. Medically wise, we've got everything a land ambulance has got, plus a little bit more, because our doctors are allowed to do advanced interventions such as surgical. They're allowed to anaesthetise patients and obviously do the more advanced things that normally is reserved for accident emergency departments. So we're fairly well equipped. There's about 160 kilograms of medical equipment packed into this little helicopter. The aircraft's configured at the moment for its single patient role, you see, with the doctor's seat and 1 bed. If we need to take 2, we can in about 2 minutes re-roll the aircraft, and we have a second stretcher we keep in the boot so we can carry 2. In about 4,800 missions we've flown over 4 years, I think we've done that about 20 times now, but it really has been very handy when we've needed to on those occasions. As well as all the stuff we've got crammed into the front, we've also got a boot here. It's a constant battle between the pilots and the doctors, I think, in that we want a nice light helicopter and they want to carry a complete hospital in it. But in the back here we've got another about 100 kilograms of kit, and it's mainly the secondary things they don't need straight away, like stretchers, spinal boards, burns kits. We've even got stuff for delivering babies, but everything that's sort of a secondary bit of kit's all crammed into the boot here, and we can get that if we need to. Okay, this is sort of the power of the helicopter. We've got 2 jet engines for safety. They're both about 740 horsepower each. So we've almost got 1,500 horsepower. That's equivalent to about 15 average sized cars dragging this helicopter around. And that's the reason it goes so fast. And more importantly, I've got a lot of power to get in and out of some very tight landing spaces. So the engines are in there. Okay, we've got a big boot here where we keep all the stuff. The fuel's about there. There's about 600 litres of fuel in the thing. Lasts about 2 hours. And that's the helicopter with obviously the main rotors and tail rotors. Put it all together, it's a cracking helicopter and we're very lucky having it.
Yeah, I'm the HEMS paramedic. I sit on the left hand side of the pilot in the aircraft, which you can see there where all the maps and the controls are. It's my job to make sure that we get to the right place at the right time. So I have to work the radios to speak to the ambulance controls. I have to do all the navigation. We use normal maps, normal road maps and air charts. We also have our GPS that we use in there, so I have to make sure that's working, input all the correct grid references so that we can get to the right job at the right time. Also, from the front seat there, when we're landing, I've got a good view out the front and sides so that we can, if we're going into a tight site, so it's a small area, we can see if there's any dangers when we're landing. It's also obviously the job of everybody else in the aircraft to make sure that there's nothing around us that's going to endanger ourselves or the aircraft. When we've landed on scene, the HEMS paramedic essentially can bring the same skills and skill sets that a normal road paramedic has, but working in conjunction with the doctor and the extra skills that we've developed with the HEMS, we can provide more life-saving procedures on scene, the sort of procedures that normally would be performed when they get to hospital. This obviously can greatly increase the outcome for the patient prior to them arriving at hospital.
What we do when we arrive on scene is make an assessment, first of all, for our own safety. We've got to be sure that we don't get injured. We're dealing with road accidents, hazardous materials, sharp things all over the place, blood, body fluids, so we've got to be quite careful. We then look at if it's a road accident, we look at the mechanism. We try and work out what's actually happened to the patient. What sort of speeds, what sort of energies are involved, if it's a fall from height, how high have they fallen. That gives us an idea of what to expect on what's going on in the patient, what to look for and what to be careful about. Once we're at the patient, we make an assessment of their initial responsiveness. Are they awake and talking? If they are, it's generally a good sign. If they're not, we look at their airway, their breathing and their circulation, and we make critical interventions at different stages to stabilise the patient. To do that, we've got a variety of equipment. The big red bag is the primary equipment bag. That's got pretty much everything in it to stabilise, manage a patient with some very serious injuries. We can deliver intensive care unit level procedures to patients on the side of the road, which is a huge benefit to patients. The green bag's got oxygen and resuscitation equipment and monitoring. And we've got a variety of different monitors and ventilators so that we can really find out what's going on with patients. We normally take one patient in the aircraft. We've got the ability to take two, but obviously that means we've got a lot of work on our hands. We generally try and get other services involved if we need them. It's relatively snug. We're lucky in that we've got access to the whole of the patient, but it still doesn't allow us a lot of space to be doing things on the way to hospital. So we spend a lot of time stabilising the patient, getting them in the best possible condition for flight. One of the huge advantages of the aircraft is that we're able to fly A in a straight line, B fast, but we're able to fly patients directly to centres where they need to be. So burns patients go to burn centres, brain injury patients go to brain injury centres, and there's a lot of medical evidence now to suggest that actually that's very good for them. We work very closely with the smaller hospitals. They're all capable of stabilising these patients, but it does take time to transfer them from one hospital to another. So we're shortcutting, taking probably 4 or 5 hours out of patients' journey to definitive care by getting them to the right place within the right time frame. One of the things that we're able to do with patients is anaesthetise them to protect their airway and protect their breathing. We do this particularly with patients who are agitated and combative, so people who've got head injuries, brain injuries, that sort of thing. We do that first of all for our own safety. We can't have someone getting up and trying to climb out the aircraft when we're cruising along at a couple of hundred knots. Obviously we also do it for the patient's benefit. We're able to maximise oxygen delivery to the brain, which in the crucial few hours after a brain injury is really one of the most important things that needs to be done. As one of the benefits that we really have in the system is getting to these patients within the right time frame and getting them to hospital within the right time frame. Once they're in the aircraft, we can monitor them using various equipment. We can keep a very close eye on them. We're able to turn the paramedic seat round so they can look at the head, and we can do a few things in flight, but we aim to get the patient in the best possible condition before the flight and get them off to hospital as quickly as possible.
Right, it was Mother's Day this year, and William was riding his pony in the field down the bottom of the street. He was having a riding lesson, and they were doing 5 jumps in a row. He'd done it 2 or 3 times, and he went round to do it again. The pony jumped 3 jumps and then just decided she wasn't going to do it anymore and stopped. And William flicked off the top, and as he did, his leg, top of his leg, his femur just went across the jump and snapped and sort of bent into the shape of the jump. I knew straight away from looking at him and the shape of his leg that he'd broken it, so I said to his instructor, don't touch him. We phoned 999 straight away. They sent out a small van with 1 paramedic in. He came out and sort of looked at William and said, well, let's hope we can get the air ambulance. He phoned for them and luckily they were available. So he was trying to get a line into William's arm to put some morphine in to take the pain. With that, it must have been only a couple of minutes, and William said, "I can see them coming," because he was flat on the floor, of course. And they landed. And they'd sent ahead instructions for us to lie all the show jumps down in case they sort of fell over when the helicopter came down. And then they took over and they checked William's whole body, checked his spine and everything, and sort of organised everybody, reassured him and reassured myself, and got everything set up and told us all what we had to do to get William from round this jump. He one held his leg, one held his head. I sort of reassured William and pushed the pole, and two friends that were in the field at the time, the instructor, they pulled the pole from underneath him, and then they sort of wrapped him all up in these vacuum packed things and got him on a stretcher, and within a minute they took us, we were off to Walsgrave in the helicopter. About a minute it took us to get there, and we were in hospital that quickly. Had we have been taken to the hospital by land, it would have taken a long time, because the ambulance that was sent out could not take us, and the fact that to actually get to William, they would have had to have come across a small brook. If they couldn't have got across it, they would have had to have carried him across it, and to get the ambulance to the field, they would have had to have taken us up just a dirt track, which is big potholes. I mean, in a car it's a bumpy ride, but with a broken leg to the extent of William had got it where his sort of leg had sprung back on itself, so the bones were sort of at this sort of angle. It would have been quite a horrendous journey for him, whereas with the air ambulance he was on a stretcher and made comfortable within seconds, and within a minute we were at the hospital with no pain as such and getting the care he needed. By land it would have been a very different story. I think it would have been a more traumatic memory for him, and a lot more painful at the scene of the accident, to actually get him to a normal road surface, whereas straight into an air ambulance and up in the air and down and in the hospital in a minute was just sort of fantastic, and a lot less traumatic and painful, of course.
In Warwickshire and Northamptonshire, we have the UK's leading air ambulance service. We began in October 2003, and incredibly since that time we have completed over 5,000 emergency missions. On average, that's 5 calls a day that we are responding to. It can be a serious road traffic accident. It can be a sporting injury. It can be somebody having a heart attack out in a rural area. Whatever it is, you can be assured that the Warwickshire and Northamptonshire Air Ambulance will respond as quickly and as efficiently as possible. On average, we get to the patient within just 6 minutes. But it's not just that speed of response that makes the air ambulance special in this area. We are one of the very few air ambulances in the country that carries a doctor on board, as well as intensive care equipment. That allows us to treat the patient as soon as we get there at the scene. By doing that, we actually save more lives. We actually improve the outcomes for many patients that are seriously ill. By treating people there and then at the scene, we can and do perform operations at the roadside. By doing that, we are making a real difference to people's lives. All of this service is very special, yet it is all funded by voluntary donations. It costs us £1.4 million a year to operate our service for 10 hours per day, each and every day of the year. All of that 1.4 million has to come from voluntary donations. We don't receive any funding from the government, we don't receive any funding from the National Lottery. So everything is coming from you, the general public, and everybody that cares about us in our community. By operating as we do for the 10 hours, we are providing a fantastic service. But there is still much that we would like to improve. We would like to be working longer hours. We'd like to be doing 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day, and eventually right up to 24 hours a day. We'd also like a second helicopter. That way we can respond to everybody in our region as quickly and efficiently as possible. There is much that we want to do, but we can't do it without your support. We need you to give to the Warwickshire Northamptonshire Air Ambulance as much as you can. You are lifesavers in the same way that our doctors and paramedics and the rest of the crew are. Without your support, we can't do anything. We do save many lives in the year, and we're going to save many more lives in future years, but only if you can support us. We're very grateful for everything that you do, and I would like to thank you for taking an interest in the Warwickshire and Northamptonshire Air Ambulance, and I look forward to your support in the future. Thank you.